Welcome to Champion Stories. If this is your first time here, subscribe now and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. And now, on to today's story. The neon lights of the Las Vegas Strip flickered through the hotel window as Darren, better known to millions as IShowSpeed, paced restlessly across his suite. His phone buzzed incessantly with notifications from his latest stream, where his explosive energy had once again captivated and sometimes concerned his massive audience. At just 20 years old, he commanded the attention of millions, yet tonight felt different. The weight of responsibility seemed heavier than usual, pressing down on his shoulders like an invisible burden he couldn't quite shake. Earlier that day, his management team had arranged a surprise meeting that would change everything. They mentioned someone special wanted to meet him, but the identity remained a mystery until the elevator doors opened on the 42nd floor of the luxury hotel. Standing there, smaller in stature than expected but radiating an unmistakable presence, was Pacquiao himself. The legendary boxer wore a simple white polo shirt and dark jeans, his weathered hands clasped behind his back, a gentle smile creasing his face. The moment their eyes met, Darren felt something shift inside him. Here was a man who had fought his way from the streets of General Santos City to becoming one of the greatest boxers of all time. Yet his demeanor carried no arrogance, no demand for recognition. Instead, Manny's presence seemed to calm the usual storm of energy that constantly churned within the young content creator. Manny had watched several of IShowSpeed's streams, not out of curiosity about internet culture, but because he recognized something familiar in the young man's hunger for connection with people. The boxer understood what it meant to carry the hopes and dreams of millions, to feel the pressure of being constantly watched, judged, and expected to perform. He had experienced the loneliness that came with fame, the weight of knowing that every action could inspire or disappoint countless followers. As they sat together in the hotel's private lounge, Manny shared stories that had never made it to interviews or documentaries. He spoke about nights when the pressure became overwhelming, when the thought of disappointing his fans in the Philippines kept him awake. He described the moment he realized that his platform wasn't just about entertainment or personal success, but about the responsibility to lift others up, to show them that dreams were achievable through dedication and respect for others. The Filipino champion explained how his own journey from poverty had taught him that true strength wasn't measured in knockout punches or pay-per-view numbers, but in the ability to remain humble despite success. He had learned that the energy he put into the world would return to him multiplied, whether positive or negative. Every word he spoke, every action he took, rippled outward to affect people he would never meet but whose lives could be changed by his example. Darren found himself leaning forward, hanging on every word. This wasn't the typical celebrity meet and greet he had experienced before. Manny wasn't lecturing or preaching. He was simply sharing the wisdom that had carried him through decades of public life. The boxer's voice carried the weight of experience, each story a lesson wrapped in genuine care for a younger person walking a similar path. As the evening progressed, Manny spoke about his children and how fatherhood had transformed his understanding of legacy. He realized that his greatest victories wouldn't be remembered in boxing records, but in the lives he had touched positively. The thought of Jimuel, Michael, Princess, Queen Elizabeth, and Israel watching his every move had made him more conscious of being a role model worthy of their respect and admiration. The conversation stretched past midnight, neither man wanting the moment to end. For Darren, it felt like sitting with a wise grandfather who understood the unique pressures of his generation, while offering timeless wisdom about character, purpose, and the power of positive influence. Something fundamental was shifting in his perspective, a transformation that would soon ripple through everything he created. The following morning arrived with an unusual quietness that seemed to envelop Darren's entire being. For the first time in months, he didn't immediately reach for his phone upon waking. Instead, he found himself staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment from the previous evening. Manny's words had planted seeds of reflection that were already beginning to sprout in his consciousness, challenging everything he thought he knew about success and influence. Manny had woken before dawn, as was his lifelong habit. In his own suite, just floors below, the boxing legend sat in meditation, a practice he had maintained since his early fighting days. He understood that his encounter with the young content creator was more than coincidence. Throughout his career, He had learned to recognize moments when he could plant seeds of wisdom in fertile ground, and something about Darren's genuine hunger for connection reminded him of his younger self. The boxer reflected on his own journey through fame's treacherous waters. He remembered the intoxication of early success, when crowd cheers and financial rewards had temporarily clouded his judgment about what truly mattered. Those lessons had come at great cost, through mistakes that had tested his relationships and challenged his values. Now at 54, he possessed the clarity that only came through weathering life's storms and emerging with deeper understanding. Darren's mind kept returning to one particular moment from their conversation. Manny had described a night in Manila when a young fan approached him outside a restaurant. The child, no older than 8, had looked up with eyes full of hope and told him that watching his fights gave his family something to believe in during difficult times. That moment had crystallized for Manny the true weight of his platform and the responsibility that came with being someone others looked up to. The content creator began to see his own audience through a different lens. Behind every username, every comment, every viewer count was a real person seeking entertainment, connection, or perhaps inspiration. Some were likely struggling with challenges he couldn't imagine, finding temporary escape or motivation in his content. The realization hit him with unexpected force. His energy, his words, his actions weren't just entertainment. They were potentially lifelines for people he would never meet. Manny had shared how his mother, Dionysia, had taught him that true strength meant lifting others up rather than tearing them down. Her wisdom, born from years of struggle and survival, had shaped his understanding that success without positive impact was ultimately hollow. The boxer carried this lesson into every aspect of his life, from his interactions with fans to his political service in the Philippines. As the day progressed, Darren found himself analyzing his recent streams with fresh eyes. He began to identify moments where his impulsive reactions might have sent negative messages to impressionable viewers. The realization wasn't accompanied by guilt or regret, but rather by a growing sense of opportunity. He possessed a platform that could genuinely make a difference in people's lives if wielded with intention and wisdom. Manny spent the afternoon visiting a local youth center in Las Vegas, something he did whenever his travels brought him to new cities. He moved through the facility with practiced ease, offering encouragement to young people who reminded him of his own childhood in General Santos City. Each interaction reinforced his belief that success meant nothing without the ability to positively impact others, especially those facing similar struggles to what he had overcome. The boxer's approach to mentorship had evolved over decades of experience. He had learned that preaching rarely created lasting change, but authentic connection and lived example could plant seeds that would grow long after conversations ended. His time with Darren the previous evening had felt like one of those meaningful exchanges, where genuine wisdom found receptive ground in a young person ready for growth. That evening, as both men prepared for sleep in their respective rooms, each carried a sense of anticipation about what this unexpected connection might lead to. Neither could predict the ripple effects their meeting would create, but both sensed that something significant had begun. 3 days had passed since their initial meeting, yet the transformation in Darren's approach to content creation was already becoming evident to those closest to him. His usual pre-stream ritual of hyping himself up had evolved into moments of quiet reflection about the message he wanted to convey. The change wasn't dramatic or forced, but rather a natural evolution that seemed to flow from a deeper understanding of his influence. Manny had extended an invitation for the young creator to visit his training facility in Las Vegas, a private gym where the boxing legend maintained his physical conditioning and mental discipline. The space reflected its owner's character, modest, functional, and focused entirely on purpose rather than appearance. Unlike the flashy commercial gyms Darren was accustomed to, this place emanated a sense of serious dedication and respect for the craft. Within these walls, Manny demonstrated the daily discipline that had sustained his extraordinary career. His workout routine remained as rigorous as ever, each movement deliberate and purposeful. But what struck Darren most powerfully wasn't the physical training itself, but the mindset behind it. Every punch thrown into the heavy bag carried decades of refined technique. Every footwork drill represented thousands of hours of patient practice. The boxer explained how his relationship with discipline had evolved over the years. In his youth, training had been driven by hunger for success and escape from poverty. Now, It served as meditation, a way to maintain the mental clarity necessary for making wise decisions in all aspects of life. The physical discipline translated into emotional discipline, the ability to pause and consider consequences before acting or speaking. Darren observed how Manny interacted with everyone in the facility, from his longtime trainer to the young maintenance worker who cleaned the equipment. Each person received the same level of respect and genuine interest in their well-being. There was no hierarchy of importance based on status or wealth, only human beings deserving of dignity and kindness. This authentic humility began to reshape Darren's understanding of what true confidence looked like. He had always equated strength with loudness, impact with intensity, but watching Manny move through his environment revealed a different kind of power. The quiet confidence that came from knowing one's values and living them consistently, regardless of who was watching. The boxing legend shared stories of his early days in professional fighting, when success had temporarily inflated his ego and clouded his judgment. He described the painful lessons that had taught him the difference between being famous and being respected, between commanding attention and earning genuine admiration. These hard-won insights had cost him relationships and opportunities, but ultimately led to the wisdom that now guided his every decision. Darren began to recognize patterns in his own behavior that mirrored Manny's early mistakes. The constant need for validation through increasingly extreme content, the addiction to immediate reactions rather than lasting impact, the focus on numbers rather than meaningful connection. The realization wasn't harsh or critical, but rather illuminating, like finally understanding a puzzle that had long seemed unsolvable. As they worked out together, Manny demonstrated how physical training could serve as a metaphor for personal growth. Each repetition represented commitment to improvement. Each set completed despite fatigue built character. Each day of consistent effort contributed to long-term transformation. The boxer had learned that lasting change required patience and persistence, qualities that modern culture often overlooked in favor of instant gratification. The afternoon session concluded with Manny showing Darren photographs from his childhood in the Philippines, images of barefoot children playing in dusty streets, families sharing modest meals, communities supporting each other through hardship. These pictures represented not just his personal history, but a reminder of the millions of people worldwide who looked to successful figures for hope and inspiration. That evening, Darren returned to his hotel room carrying more than physical fatigue from their training session. He possessed a new framework for understanding his platform and the opportunity it represented to make a genuine difference in people's lives. The notification sound from his streaming setup felt different this time, as Darren prepared for what would become a pivotal broadcast in his career. For the first time in months, he approached the camera not with his usual explosive energy, but with a sense of purpose that felt both foreign and natural. The transformation wasn't about suppressing his authentic personality, but rather channeling it towards something more meaningful than entertainment alone. Manny had spent the morning in prayer and reflection, a routine that had anchored him through decades of public scrutiny and personal challenges. He thought about the young creator he had met just days earlier, recognizing in Darren the same restless energy that had once driven his own pursuit of greatness. The boxer understood that true mentorship wasn't about changing someone's essential nature, but helping them discover the best version of themselves. The previous evening, Manny had shared stories about his family's influence on his approach to fame and responsibility. He described how his wife Jinky had helped him understand that their children would learn more from observing his daily actions than from any words of wisdom he might offer. This realization had fundamentally shifted how he approached every public appearance, every interview, every interaction with fans. Darren's first stream following their encounters revealed subtle but significant changes in his content approach. While maintaining his signature enthusiasm, he began incorporating moments of genuine connection with his audience. Instead of purely reactive content, he started sharing thoughts about personal growth, the importance of treating others with respect, and the responsibility that came with having a platform that reached millions. The response from his audience was immediate and overwhelmingly positive. Comments flooded in from viewers who noticed the shift, expressing appreciation for content that entertained while also inspiring them to be better versions of themselves. Many shared personal stories about challenges they were facing, finding in Darren's evolved approach a source of motivation and hope. Manny continued his own daily routine of community engagement, visiting local schools and youth programs whenever his schedule permitted. These interactions weren't publicity events or organized meet and greets, but genuine attempts to connect with young people who might benefit from encouragement. He had learned that the most meaningful impact often occurred in these smaller, more intimate settings. The boxer's approach to these visits had been refined through years of experience. He focused less on talking about his achievements and more on listening to the dreams and struggles of the young people he met. Each conversation reinforced his belief that success meant nothing without the ability to lift others up, to help them see possibilities they might not have recognized in themselves. During one particularly meaningful school visit, Manny met a teenager named Paolo whose family had immigrated from the Philippines. The young man's eyes lit up with recognition and pride, seeing someone who shared his heritage, achieving success while maintaining humility and connection to his roots. These moments reminded Manny why he continued to seek opportunities for positive influence despite his busy schedule. Darren began incorporating elements of Manny's wisdom into his content without explicitly referencing their meetings. He started featuring segments about overcoming challenges, the importance of hard work and persistence, and treating others with kindness, regardless of their status or background. The changes felt authentic because they emerged from genuine personal growth rather than calculated content strategy. The transformation wasn't immediate or dramatic, but rather a gradual evolution that reflected Darren's growing understanding of his platform's potential for positive impact. Each stream became an opportunity to model the kind of behavior and attitude that might inspire his audience to pursue their own growth and treat others with greater respect and compassion. As both men continued their respective journeys, the connection formed during their brief time together continued to influence their daily decisions and long-term vision for their platforms. 2 weeks had passed since their initial encounter, and the ripple effects of their meeting were becoming increasingly visible in ways neither man had anticipated. Darren found himself facing his first major test of the principles Manny had shared when a controversial situation erupted during one of his most watched streams. Instead of reacting with his typical impulsive energy, he paused, remembering the boxer's words about the power of thoughtful response over immediate reaction. Manny was in the Philippines, visiting his hometown of General Santos City, when news of Darren's measured response reached him through social media clips shared by his children. Watching the young creator handle pressure with newfound wisdom filled the boxing legend with quiet satisfaction. He recognized the moment as evidence that their time together had planted seeds in fertile ground, seeds that were now beginning to bear fruit. The situation had unfolded when a viewer attempted to provoke Darren into making inflammatory comments about a sensitive topic. In the past, such provocations might have triggered an explosive response designed to entertain through shock value. Instead, Darren acknowledged the comment calmly, redirected the conversation toward more positive territory, and used the moment to discuss the importance of respectful discourse even when facing disagreement. His audience's reaction surprised even him. The chat exploded with appreciation for his maturity, with longtime viewers expressing admiration for his growth. Many commented that they felt proud to support a creator who could maintain entertainment value while demonstrating personal development and positive leadership. The viewer count actually increased as word spread about his evolved approach to challenging situations. Manny spent the afternoon walking through the familiar streets of his childhood neighborhood, observing the changes that success had allowed him to bring to his community. New schools, improved infrastructure, and youth programs represented tangible manifestations of his belief that influence should translate into meaningful impact. Each project reinforced his understanding that true legacy was measured not in personal achievements, but in the positive changes one could create for others. During his visit to a local youth center he had funded years earlier, Manny met children who reminded him of his younger self. Their dreams seemed impossibly large given their current circumstances, yet he recognized the same hunger and determination that had driven his own journey from poverty to global recognition. These interactions renewed his commitment to using his platform for elevation rather than mere entertainment. The boxing legend reflected on how his relationship with fame had evolved throughout his career. Early success had brought intoxicating validation, but experience had taught him that external recognition was hollow without internal peace and purpose. The lessons learned through both triumph and failure had shaped his current approach to mentorship, focusing on character development rather than achievement strategies. Darren's newfound approach began attracting attention from other content creators who noticed the positive shift in his engagement rates and audience loyalty. Several reached out privately, curious about the changes they observed in his content and demeanor. These conversations became opportunities for him to share insights about responsibility, authenticity, and the potential for positive influence without explicitly revealing the source of his inspiration. The young creator found himself naturally gravitating toward collaborations with others who shared similar values about using their platforms constructively. Content that might have once focused purely on entertainment began incorporating elements of education, inspiration, and community building. The transformation felt organic rather than forced, emerging from genuine personal growth rather than strategic calculation. Manny's children, particularly Jimuel and Michael, began sharing their father's content creation philosophy with their own peer groups. They had grown up watching him navigate fame with integrity, learning through observation how to balance authentic personality with responsible influence. Their conversations with friends revealed the far-reaching impact of principled leadership across generational lines. As both men continued their respective journeys, the connection forged during their brief time together continued to influence their daily decisions and long-term vision for meaningful impact. A month had elapsed since their transformative encounter, and the changes in Darren's approach to content creation had begun creating unexpected waves throughout the digital entertainment landscape. His evolved style was inspiring other creators to examine their own relationships with their audiences, leading to what some observers called a quiet revolution in responsible content creation. The ripple effects extended far beyond his immediate viewership, reaching corners of the internet neither he nor Manny had anticipated. Manny received updates about Darren's continued growth through various channels, including his own children, who followed the young creator's content. Princess and Queen Elizabeth had become particularly vocal advocates for the positive changes they observed, sharing clips with their friends and discussing how authentic leadership could emerge at any age. Their enthusiasm reminded Manny of his own journey toward understanding that influence carried both opportunity and obligation. The boxing legend was preparing for a charity event in Manila when he learned that Darren had begun incorporating philanthropic elements into his content strategy. The young creator had started featuring stories about overcoming adversity, highlighting community members who demonstrated resilience and determination despite challenging circumstances. These segments consistently generated some of his highest engagement rates, proving that audiences hungered for meaningful content alongside entertainment. During the charity event, Manny found himself surrounded by young people who had been inspired by the same principles he had shared with Darren. Many spoke about content creators who were beginning to use their platforms for positive impact, creating a culture where entertainment and inspiration could coexist naturally. The conversation reinforced his belief that wisdom shared authentically would multiply and reach audiences far beyond the initial recipient. Darren's transformation had attracted attention from major brands and organizations seeking partnerships with creators who demonstrated both entertainment value and positive influence. These opportunities represented significant financial growth, but more importantly, they provided platforms for amplifying messages about personal development, community support, and responsible digital citizenship. The young creator approached each opportunity through the lens of potential positive impact, rather than purely monetary considerations. The boxing champion reflected on how his own understanding of success had evolved throughout his career. Early achievements had been measured in championships, earnings, and global recognition. Now, at this stage of his life, success meant witnessing positive changes in people he had touched, seeing principles he valued spreading organically through communities he might never directly reach. Darren's growth represented one visible example of this deeper form of impact. Several educational institutions began studying the phenomenon of positive influence in digital spaces, using Darren's content evolution as a case study in authentic leadership development. Researchers noted how his audience had not only maintained loyalty, but actually increased engagement when content became more purposeful. These findings challenged conventional wisdom about what audiences truly wanted from their favorite creators. Manny's wife, Jinky, observed her husband's quiet satisfaction with Darren's continued development, recognizing the particular joy he derived from successful mentorship. She had watched him interact with countless young people throughout their marriage, understanding that his greatest fulfillment came from seeing others discover their potential for positive influence. These connections energized him in ways that personal achievements no longer could. The young creator began receiving messages from viewers describing how his evolved approach had inspired them to make positive changes in their own lives. Students reported improved academic performance, family relationships strengthened through more respectful communication, and community involvement increased among young people who had never previously considered civic engagement. These testimonials provided evidence that authentic transformation could create expanding circles of positive influence. As both men continued their respective journeys, neither fully grasped the extent to which their brief connection was contributing to broader cultural shifts toward more meaningful digital engagement and responsible platform usage. 6 weeks after their life-changing encounter, Darren found himself standing before his streaming setup with an unprecedented sense of nervous anticipation. The decision had been building within him for days, whether to share publicly the source of his transformation and risk exposing the private moment that had fundamentally altered his perspective on influence and responsibility. The weight of this choice felt heavier than any content decision he had previously faced. Manny was conducting his morning training routine in General Santos City when the notification reached him through his son Jimuel's phone. The young creator had posted a brief announcement indicating he would be sharing something deeply personal during his next stream, something that had profoundly changed his approach to content creation and life itself. The boxing legend immediately understood the significance of this moment and felt a mixture of pride and protective concern for the young man. The decision to speak publicly about their encounter had not come easily to Darren. For weeks, he had honored the private nature of their meeting while implementing the lessons learned through their conversations. However, the increasing number of viewers asking about the source of his positive changes, combined with his growing understanding of his platform's potential for good, had convinced him that sharing this story might inspire others to seek similar transformation. Manny reflected on his own experiences with public vulnerability, remembering moments when sharing personal struggles and growth had deepened his connection with fans while helping others navigate similar challenges. He understood that authentic transparency, when offered with pure intentions, could become a powerful tool for positive influence. The boxer felt confident that Darren had reached sufficient maturity to handle this level of public disclosure responsibly. The streaming notification went live, and within minutes, hundreds of thousands of viewers had joined what Darren had titled as his most important broadcast ever. His usual energetic introduction was replaced by a more contemplative approach, as he acknowledged the gravity of what he was about to share. The chat immediately buzzed with curiosity and anticipation, sensing something different about this particular stream. Darren began by describing his state of mind before the encounter. The constant pressure to create increasingly extreme content, the hollowness he felt despite massive success, and his growing awareness that his influence carried responsibilities he had never fully acknowledged. He painted a picture of someone who had achieved everything he thought he wanted, but found himself questioning whether that success was truly meaningful. The young creator then revealed his meeting with Manny Pacquiao, describing it not as a celebrity encounter, but as a life-changing conversation with someone who understood the unique challenges of public influence. He spoke about the boxer's humility, wisdom, and genuine concern for helping a younger person navigate the complexities of fame and responsibility. Each detail was shared with obvious respect and gratitude. As Darren continued his story, the chat response was overwhelmingly positive. Viewers expressed appreciation for his honesty, many sharing their own experiences with mentorship and personal growth. Comments flooded in from people describing how his recent content evolution had already inspired them to make positive changes in their own lives, validating his decision to be transparent about the source of his transformation. Manny watched clips of the stream later that evening, feeling moved by the respect and maturity Darren demonstrated in sharing their story. The young creator had managed to convey the essence of their conversations while maintaining appropriate boundaries and focusing on the universal lessons rather than private details. This balance demonstrated the growth that had occurred since their initial meeting. The response to Darren's revelation exceeded all expectations, with the stream breaking his previous viewership records and generating unprecedented positive engagement across all social media platforms. The weeks following Darren's public revelation transformed both his career and the broader conversation about responsible content creation in ways that surprised even the most optimistic observers. The stream where he had shared his encounter with Manny Pacquiao became one of the most watched and shared pieces of content in his career, generating millions of views and sparking discussions about mentorship, personal growth, and the potential for positive influence across digital platforms worldwide. Manny received the news of the stream's unprecedented success while visiting a youth center in Quezon City, where he was speaking with teenagers about overcoming adversity through determination and character. The irony was not lost on him that while discussing these very principles with young people in person, similar messages were simultaneously reaching millions through Darren's platform. The convergence reinforced his belief that wisdom shared authentically would find its way to those who needed it most. The boxing legend decided to respond publicly to Darren's revelation through a heartfelt social media post that thanked the young creator for his courage in sharing their story and for demonstrating that personal growth was possible at any stage of success. Manny's response emphasized how proud he felt, watching someone apply lessons learned and transform not only their own life, but the lives of countless others through authentic leadership and positive example. The interaction between the two public figures created a powerful narrative that resonated far beyond their individual audiences. Educational institutions began incorporating their story into curricula about digital citizenship and responsible leadership. Mental health advocates highlighted how their connection demonstrated the importance of mentorship in navigating the pressures of public life. Community organizations used their example to illustrate how authentic relationships could bridge generational and cultural divides. Darren's content evolution continued accelerating in positive directions, with his audience growing not just in numbers, but in engagement quality. Viewers began sharing stories of how his transformed approach had inspired them to seek mentorship in their own lives, to consider the impact of their actions on others, and to pursue personal growth with the same dedication they applied to entertainment consumption. These testimonials provided ongoing motivation for his continued development. The young creator established a scholarship fund aimed at supporting young people from disadvantaged backgrounds who demonstrated potential for positive leadership in their communities. The initiative was directly inspired by Manny's lifelong commitment to giving back to those facing similar challenges to what he had overcome. This tangible expression of values learned through their relationship created lasting impact beyond digital entertainment. Manny's family, particularly his children, watched the unfolding story with deep appreciation for their father's approach to mentorship. Jimuel, Michael, Princess, Queen Elizabeth, and Israel had grown up observing his interactions with young people, but seeing the documented transformation of someone like Darren provided them with a clear example of how wisdom shared with genuine care could create exponential positive change. The boxing champion found himself invited to speak at technology conferences and universities about the intersection of traditional mentorship and modern digital influence. These opportunities allowed him to share insights about authentic leadership with audiences who might never have encountered his perspective through sports alone. Each speaking engagement reinforced his understanding that impact often occurred in unexpected contexts and through unconventional partnerships. As months passed, the story of their connection became a touchstone for discussions about positive influence, responsible platform usage, and the potential for meaningful mentorship relationships to develop across generational and cultural boundaries. Their example inspired countless similar connections between established leaders and emerging influencers, seeking guidance on navigating success with integrity. Both men continued their respective journeys with enhanced understanding of how individual transformation could create ripples of positive change, extending far beyond personal boundaries. Their brief encounter had evolved into a lasting testament to the power of authentic connection and the responsibility that came with influence, regardless of the medium through which it was exercised. Thank you for watching another episode of Champion Stories. If you enjoyed today's story, subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any of our upcoming inspiring tales about Manny Pacquiao. Share your thoughts in the comments. We read every single one, and many times your ideas inspire our next episode. See you next time.